Obtaining accurate results, strategies for quantitative and qualitative data collection. There are many aspects of research design that can help improve the accuracy of your results. Consideration should be paid to how you choose participants, how you select or create a measure, how you collect data, how you analyze and interpret data, and how you draw conclusions. Before we talk about choosing participants, we need to define what a population is. A population is an entire group of people who share some characteristics. For example, all fourth graders in Texas, or all teachers at a specific alternative high school in Pasadena could be populations. Note that the size of the population doesn't really matter. What matters is that the population includes everyone who meets certain criteria. A sample is a subset of the population. All members of the sample should meet the criteria, but the group only includes some, not all, of the population's members. For example, out of all Texas fourth graders, a sample might be drawn of fourth graders at ABC Elementary School in Houston. Similarly, out of all teachers at XYZ High School, a sample of 5 teachers might be chosen. A population is not defined by its size. Even a single class of students can be a population. Rather, the population is the group the researcher wants to draw conclusions about. If the researcher only wants to draw conclusions about his or her class of students, the class would be the population, and the entire population would be studied. In traditional research, samples are almost always used, and researchers try to draw conclusions about the population based on the sample. In action research, it is quite common to study a small population, for example, a class of students, and just draw conclusions about that group. Both methods are helpful, and the choice of method heavily depends on the researcher's purpose. A teacher engaged in action research might want to find the best way of teaching his or her students, and it might not matter if the best way would apply to other classrooms or not. Now let's talk about sampling. Sampling involves selecting participants from a population. There are 2 types. Random sampling, as the name would suggest, involves randomly choosing people from the population. In this type of sampling, all individuals in the defined population have an equal and independent chance of being selected for the sample. Random sampling is the best way to possibly obtain a representative sample. However, it is pretty rare in educational research, as we often don't have access to the entire population. Furthermore, even when the population is accessible, members of the population could choose not to participate, which detracts from the randomness of the sample. The other type of sampling, non-random sampling, involves choosing participants either because they are available, called convenient sampling, or choosing them intentionally, called purposive sampling. Much educational research involves convenient sampling, which is understandable. However, we should keep in mind that a convenient sample is less likely to represent the general population than a truly random sample. Purposive sampling is most appropriate for qualitative studies, where the researcher wants to ensure that participants have the necessary experiences and/or characteristics and will be useful sources of information. Note that random sampling is rare in action research. Here are some basic strategies for choosing participants. Use the entire group whenever possible. If using a subset, select participants who best represent the entire group on the variables of interest. For qualitative research, select participants who will be good informants. This means people who are open, honest, and who can communicate clearly. So let's say you have a sample, whether obtained randomly or by convenience. Now what do? It's time to collect data. Surveys are just one way of collecting data. Other methods include tests, rating scales, and other instruments or measures. But the data are only good as the measures used to collect the data. Better data means more accurate results. Here are some strategies for choosing or creating a measure. Choose published measures that have been thoroughly tested and researched. Report published statistics for the measure, namely reliability and validity statistics. If creating a measure, ensure the following. Each item in question measures just one thing. Directions and items are clear and unambiguous. Reading level is appropriate for participants. And items can be objectively converted to quantitative or qualitative data, for example, through the use of rating scales or coding. In addition, experts should review the content of the test to verify that all items are related to the variable being measured. Pilot test the measure with a small group similar to the study participants. Obtain feedback and revise the measure accordingly. Now let's talk about strategies for collecting the data. Data should be collected under optimal circumstances to minimize extraneous influences. Standardized testing or measurement procedures should be used. Observers should be trained with an observation protocol. Interviews and observations should be audio or videotaped with participants' consent. Interviews and observations should be thorough. And the use of multiple measures and/or multiple sources of information is ideal. When analyzing and interpreting data, it is important to review quantitative data for data entry errors and extreme scores, outliers. We should also establish standards of meaningfulness before starting data analysis. Develop categories for coding qualitative data and revise these after expert review. Train data coders so that they know what to look for and how to code data consistently. And review qualitative data analysis with a colleague and/or with participants to verify accuracy. Finally, conclusions about results are usually limited to the group that provided the data. However, if the group is representative of the greater population, limited conclusions about the population may be warranted. Results suggest, show, demonstrate, provide evidence for, etc. Results never prove. Use precise language that reflects the actual findings. And be cautious about drawing conclusions about the cause of a result. Results can be influenced by numerous factors, not only the variables of interest, but a variety of other variables as well.